So having had a very brief look at benefits, I'm just going to look at extraction methods generally, remuneration. And at this point, we need to kind of ask ourselves, well, what is the best way of extracting remuneration from an employer? And I'm focusing entirely on companies for this purpose, and looking at dividends and salaries. And the reason is, as corporate tax rates are going down and national insurance rates are gradually creeping up, there is an increasing benefit in actually extracting money from a company under a dividend route as opposed to a salary route. This is a couple of tabulations just to show the effect. If you are a company, and companies currently only pay tax at 3 rates, 20%, 21% or 21.25%, and from next year there'll only be 1 rate, which is 20%, you can compare what is the outcome of a salary route or a dividend route depending on the marginal tax rate of the employee. That could be, for a higher rate payer, 42%, being 40% income tax and 2% employees' national insurance, or for a lower rate payer, 32%, because they pay 20% income tax and 12% employees' national insurance. And if you just factor in £1,000 of pre-tax money in the company's hands, this is what it plops out at in the hands of the employee. Now this is adjusting for every possible tax liability. So it adjusts for the fact that dividends aren't allowable for tax, and therefore the company pays corporation tax on the £1,000. It adjusts for the fact that its salaries, they're allowable, but there's employers' national insurance. So this is costs to the company kept the same. What's the money in the employee's pocket or the dividend receiver's pocket? These are the numbers. The colour coding is obvious. Green means it's good. There used to be some variation here. There isn't any more. The greens always win on the dividend line at present. But the differences are quite startling. If you are a 42% payer, you would get, out of a basic, out of a lower rate paying company, £509 through the payroll, but £600 out of a dividend. That's a hell of a difference on £1,000. If you're a basic rate payer, your payroll on that £1,000 would be £597, but out of a dividend you might pocket £800, well you would pocket £800. So the imperative to actually go for dividend planning is huge. These are just other rates where you've got somebody who's on additional rate tax, which is now 45%, plus 2% employees' national insurance, that's 47%. The dividend advantages are still there, and if you're a 62% payer, that's because you are gradually losing your personal allowance because you're earning over £100,000. There are still massive advantages to be had. So there are big incentives to actually try and generate income through some kind of share-based payment.
Does that cost the company any money? Does the company have to pay more corporation tax?
It's built into the calcs. So let's go here, because this is the simplest case. If you've got a lower rate payer in receipt of a £1,000 dividend doesn't have a tax liability on the dividend because the deemed tax credit on the dividend is deemed to cover their basic rate liability. So if you had £1,000 worth of company money and you were going to pay it to that employee, the first thing you would have to do here is pay 20% corporation tax, which would mean that your £1,000 becomes £800. You then give that as a dividend to your employee, they pay no further tax. Whereas under the salary option, the £1,000, no corporation tax on it, but you have to lop off 13.8% employers NIC, that takes it down to about £880 odd. Take off 32% for tax and NIC and you end up with 597. So the cost of the company is always £1,000, whether it's all on salary or part dividend and part corp tax.
Excuse me, is dividend not paid to shareholders only? So
yes, it is.
Employee be a shareholder?
Yes, that's right, absolutely, yeah.
This difficulty is that employee is a shareholder.
Absolutely, but what if we were to make our employees a shareholder? I'm coming on to that aspect. You're absolutely right.